All right. So again, thanks again for joining the webinar today. And this is basically the fourth part of our 6 parts webinar. And today we're here to talk a bit about reliability. So if we take a step back and just going through the whole webinar series that we are doing, we spoke about the whole concept, right, from our side. So just give me one sec. Looks like there's a so no, here you go. Sorry about this. Always a few tricky settings. So the last few times, so from the start, we spoke about our new training that we're doing, our new webinar series that we're doing. We spoke a bit about what all the training will have, what we're going to talk. So we spoke a lot about optimization last time. So we talked about design optimization. We spoke about service optimization. I was about to joke to say we have a quiz for all of you guys here, but we won't actually go through this part yet. And as you know, throughout our webinar, we like to make it interactive. So one of the highlights for our training now that we're trying to do is to change the way we do our session to try to get more engagement for you guys and making it more interesting, right? Usually when you think about webinars, it's one-way conversation, but we want to try to make it 2 ways where you guys join us. So please feel free to unmute yourself when basically we press the button. Hey, yeah, you guys can join us. Please feel free to participate in the session. You never know, maybe someone also has similar question as you guys, or similar thinking as you guys. And from there, there's always gifts also that you will be receiving. I think some of you guys who followed us on Facebook, you've seen that we sent some freebies, so jackets, and there's few other things that we are sending out. So please feel free to participate in the session. And also don't forget, if you come at least to 5 of those 6 webinars, you also enter in a raffle where you can get $500. So also please make sure that you registered for all the webinars there. All right. So reliability, right? It's one of the big topic there, and I'm pretty sure a lot of your customers ask this question: how reliable products are. One thing which, before even we start to talk about reliability in a whole, right, what would be very interesting to get maybe from one of you guys online there, what comes to mind when we say reliability? What do you guys tell your customers about reliability? Anyone joining us today wants to maybe unmute himself and participate there, share a bit with us what they think about it. So maybe whoever wants to join us just need to raise your hand, and basically we will unmute yourself. Anyone wants to join us, just raise your hand in the. Oh, we have one. So we have Sarah who raised her hand. So maybe I will unmute you, Sarah. So if you want to basically just unmute yourself on your laptop.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, Sarah. So where are you from, Sarah? Where are you joining us from?
Cairns.
Cairns. So we're in the same state, right? Not. So Sarah, when it comes to reliability,
Queensland.
Tell me what do you understand by when someone say reliability to you?
Reliability to us would mean not having to go back and fix something. So we want to install a premium product that we don't have to return to.
And in terms of your selection of the product for you, how do you decide if a system is reliable? Would you go out and test all the different inverters? How do you pick your products there?
We've been a Fronius service agent for a very long time. So Fronius is our preference, because we don't have to go back as much as we do for other inverters.
Thanks so much for the feedback here, Sarah. People will think that I just picked you because you're a Fronius service partner. But thanks again for joining us and sharing what basically represent reliability for you there. So we have your name and also your email address there. Definitely will send you some good freebies. I think a jacket there is well deserved. So maybe if anyone else want to share what they think about when it comes to reliability, what comes to their mind there.
I think Ben O'Brien's got his hand up.
All right, we can get okay, Ben, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hey Sebastian, hear me?
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Can you hear us, Ben?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome. Where are you joining us from, Ben?
Bendigo, Central Victoria.
Bendigo, that's not too far from our office, I would say. So when it comes to reliability, Ben, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I sort of frame it in the customer's perspective as like peace of mind, and like even though your cheaper inverters have often the same 10-year warranty, like I just say, like it's no good to you if it's sitting on the wall for a month or two while we arrange replacement. So yeah, I just say that you've been in Australia for 10 years, you can handle the heat literally and metaphorically, and yeah, you guys have shown that you will go the distance and keep putting out power and not not die, so which I think is important.
Thanks so much for that, Brian.
Nice.
I think Ben, sorry, I said Brian, not Brian. I really like the part that you said about also we have proven that in the process, just not only offering on paper, right? What we can do there, right? Thanks so much for sharing, Ben. Definitely we'll send you also a jacket there. So again, feel free to continue to participate in the session. We'll just maybe go just with you guys now from there. All right, so now it should be all good. So you guys have good points, right? Not going back on site was one of the important let's say segment there. Making sure that you have some product which has proven in the past that it was or what it is reliable, right? But before we go in and talk a bit about what we have in place in the product, right? What makes the inverter reliable, I think it's always good to see also how the company, how reliability plays a big part in the company itself. And when we talk about reliability, we always go back to the start, right? It has been something which has been engraved in our culture, and I think a lot of installers, when we discuss with them, as Ben mentioned, but yeah, if they want to make sure that the system is performing. Sarah also mentioning that since the start we've been using Fronius, there's always reasons behind it, right? And for us, reliability is again a kind of the core part of our business. We don't want things to fail when you need to basically constantly change it, right? And if you look back to the start where Mr. Gunther Fronius, who founded the company in 1945, right? One of his goals was to get this new technology where people were throwing batteries, and he said, okay, let's come up with a charger, right? Because we don't want to throw the batteries away. The whole concept when you're bringing a technology to the market, you don't want to scare people saying, hey, it may have issues or it may not have issues, right? You want to have the confidence that the product will be there and it will perform as it should. And that's where, when it all started in 1945 in a small shed, after the World War II there, it was basically one of the goals. The quality of the product should be also at the core center of the whole design of the product. Also, as a business, right, you want to make sure that not only the product, it's not only a transaction that we're doing, it's also a relationship that we're building with installers and all of you guys present, right? You're using our product, it's not only a transaction, it's a company that you can rely on. If something happens, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys joining us today have different stories with Fronius, right? Different things where maybe we help you guys with different cases, or for example, we went and did different case studies together. So it's not only a transaction in a way there. It's all about the relationship and the longevity of the company here. And looking at our plan, we're still a family-run business, right? We don't have any let's say shareholders telling us what to do. It's really easy for us to do our, let's say, developing new technologies and also listening to what our partners partners and installers want to have integrated, right? And this also plays again a part in terms of providing a reliable solution there, right? It also reflects in our product. So here you can see different inverters. I would say some of you guys may have installed some of those IG's inverters. Some of you guys may have installed the Agilo, the Simo, of course, the Snap inverter. I guess everyone has tried it here coming to the training. And of course, we have also the new generation of inverters. So with all this experience that we have with previous product, I always, when I discuss with the team, we always say we never want to make the same mistake, right? It is kind of a silly way of seeing things. When a mistake happens, you want to make sure that you don't kind of repeat it again, right? And looking at, let's say, on our side at Fronius, we were able to learn from previous mistakes, for example, or we were able to develop our product to make sure that it delivers what the future needs are. And that's what we've done with all this experience throughout our product. So maybe I will get maybe one of you guys to share what's your experience with Fronius there. Again, just raise your hand if you want to share a story about how it went with Fronius inverters, or any story that you want to share. Maybe if you want to raise your hand, it can be any story. Anyone wants to join us? Remember, there's some freebies available for you guys. We already gave 2 jackets out there. All right, Eddie is here. Eddie joined us last time also. I remember it looked like you're on a good track there. So you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey
Eddie.
guys, how you doing? Hi guys, how are you?
Good. I can see that you're coming to our training. We should give you. Looks like the $500 is coming closer and closer to you.
No, we're just trying to keep our knowledge base up and just stay up to date with everything, as I'm sure everyone else is in the industry and stuff. So look, you know, like a lot of other companies, we've been installing Fronius now for about 6 years. Jumped on really because we were actually an end phase only company, and we wanted to move into string inverters, and Fronius for us, you know, looked like a pretty good offering. And truthfully, everything that we were told that was going to happen and things that we told that we would get and the ease of installing has been second to none. But probably more than that, the backup that we get from the team and the ease of actually getting exchanged parts for us. We're a Fronius service partner, but prior to that, actually getting complete new units. It's just been good. You guys have actually set yourselves up well on the back end of things, and it's all very well, you know, saying, hey, we've got a really reliable unit here, but occasionally things do happen, and when that does happen, we want to be able to have that backup and look the customer in the eye and say, hey, do you know what? Within this period, we'll actually be able to help you out. And you know, for me, that was something that you know, there are always unknown factors when you align yourself with companies, and it was very, very rewarding over, you know, a number of years to have a few issues come up and to have them pretty much immediately solved. So that was great for us.
Thanks so much, Eddie, for sharing that. Maybe on the side, you mentioned a few challenges. Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of challenges where maybe you can say, hey, maybe you guys should have done that quicker, or any story where you said, okay, like you guys are dropping the ball as a feedback for us? I mean, yeah,
absolutely. Do you know what? I can talk about a situation from today. I get to my installer, he's on site, and I'm just checking in with him, and he's tightening up the screws on the single phase Fronius smart meter, and we've got 16 mil cables that we're putting through that smart meter. And so you've got to get a little bit of tension on there, and really quickly, the screw has stripped, and and there's a $150, $160 unit that really, we're now looking at sending back. Now we've got a quick solution to that. We just take that screw out, we tap out the hole, and just put in the next size screw. So we've come up with our own solution, but probably something a little bit more robust, something that will take a 16mm cable, which is standard on a sort of a residential install. That you want to grab the bottom of the main switch, take it across to the smart meter, and then bring it back across to feed the circuit. Everyone's probably doing that with 16mm cable, and it just seems that maybe the mechanics to hold that cable in place could do with being just a tiny bit more robust.
Definitely, I've heard a bit about this. Thanks so much, Eddie, for joining us. Right, we appreciate all your support there, and also the feedback that you gave. Right, as mentioned, it's all about the relationship there. So of course, Eddie shared with us some good things, but also with the relationship, there's also some challenges. Right, no one is 100% perfect, and for example, the smart meter that Eddie mentioned. That's something that we know is happening. So that's why we need to also get this feedback from our side and not hide behind anything. And for example, just in regards to that, we are also doing some testing with new meters, right, where we use CTs, where you won't have this challenge in the future, for example. So definitely we're trying to improve, of course, to make sure that we go to this next level there, right? So looking at the whole picture, right? Of course, there are a lot of things that we have in place at Fronius, which we will discuss. There's also some challenges. With all the experience that we have, of course, we were able to sell basically around 500,000 units since 2013, which is a long time, right? And I think this is also a good example of the reliability part, which plays a big part in terms of the selection of the product, right? And when you look at this big goal of 500,000 system, right, you need to go back to the roots, right, to the designing. Why did we sell that amount of inverters? Of course, as you guys, with your support and also looking at the product itself, it is basically 50% where Fronius comes and give the product, but we also need the installers there, right, to help with the installation, right? It's not only us, it's also you guys playing a big part in it. And that's where designing and having the electronics there is always an interesting part to have a look at, right? So we'll go through some design features that we have, and also go through some of the key components of what makes the inverter, let's say, very reliable. But talking about electronics, and I think Sarah mentioned that before, I think actually everyone mentioned this bit about servicing, right? And we were talking about also with Andy feedback, with having also issues. Things can happen, right? Every electronic manufacturer or power electronics manufacturer will never tell you that, hey, we don't have any issues. Something can happen, right? And of course, we want to make sure that you have a backup, a reliable backup. That's something you can fall on if something happens. That's one of the reasons, for example, we have those board exchange, which we started with the IG range, for example, if something happened, right? Or even on our side, we won't say if something happened, we will say when something happened, because remember, it's power electronics, something will happen at a certain stage, right? And we are not saying that the whole inverter will last forever. Don't get me wrong, we still have in some inverters out there which are more like, we have some, just to give you an example, we have some Sunrise, which was made in 1995, for example, which are still out there. But still, if you look at the options that you can basically have as a backup, right, we want to make sure that you guys are able to fix if something happens, right? And we did this the same way with our Gen 24, our new generation inverter, where we optimize the whole process, where now it's only one board that you can change. So this is in terms of the actual fallback scenario, right? If something happens, what can you do? What options do you have? Because you need, nothing is, let's say, 100% as an example, right? So this is one part. The second part is, of course, the design of the system itself, right? If you look at the inverter, one thing that I think all of you guys will see is the fan on our product, right? So for us, we don't say, hey, residential, we don't need a fan, commercial, we need. All our product comes with a fan. We've been doing power conversion for more than 75 years now, so it's quite a long time, right? And we know what is required in our product to make sure that the product lasts for a long time. So maybe we'll get someone to join us when it comes to cooling, right? And products selection. What do you tell your customers? Maybe we get someone else to join us. So just put your hands up. We'll unmute you guys. What do you tell your customer when it comes to, hey, it's going to be very hot around your area? Maybe you need to have active cooling, or is active cooling important for your customers with the product selection? Maybe if we get someone to raise, someone who wants to join the conversation. Oh, we have Austin Taylor. Okay, unmute you. All right, Austin, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hey Seb, how you going?
Hi, Austin. Good, yourself? Where are you joining us today?
From Adelaide in South Australia.
South Australia gets pretty warm, I think, there, isn't it?
Certainly does, mate. It certainly does. And that's what's
the maximum temperature that goes in South Australia?
I think this summer was pretty quiet, but the one before we had a couple of 47s. So yeah, it does get pretty hot here, that's for sure.
Wow. And what did you tell your customer?
So we pretty well exclusively use Fronius. Like we've, done maybe 10 or 12 solar edge, but 99% of the time it's Fronius, and we use high-end panels as well, like REC and Q cells and an occasional sun power. So we're all about a premium product, and that's why we love using Fronius all the time. So yeah, with it being so hot, with anything electronic, obviously keeping it cool gives you that longevity with it. So we always make sure we are aware where we install the inverters, out of the direct sun and on no western walls, or make sure it's under cover. And yeah, by having that fan, it just keeps it certainly cooler for a longer period. And the new Gen 24s are superb. The difference on the noise of the fan is a huge thing. So everybody's really impressed with that, and we're starting to get a few of them in now as well, which is great.
That's perfect. Thanks for sharing what you tell your customers about the cooling there, right? And also your opinion about the cooling system there. Really appreciate. Definitely, we'll send you some freebies. I will push for more jackets with more questions that I'm asking during this session. But thanks again, Austin, for sharing your opinion there. So as Austin mentioned, cooling is definitely an important part, right, in terms of longevity. And how do we show that to customers is always an important part, right? Because sometimes it's hard to put a picture in a mind. What does it mean to have a fan in a product, right? Because of course you have the panels you need to select, you have the inverters, and some customers, they just want to have something on the wall. But some of the parts we usually call the inverter the heart of the system, right? So that's why I think it's pretty important to look at, for example, when we talk about cooling, what does it offer you in a way. So one thing that Austin mentioned is, of course, Australia, it's getting pretty warm around the country, and we see all the climate change, everything happening around the world, not only in Australia. I think, the weather is kind of unpredictable in a way, but the temperature, of course, we can see that rising. One thing that I can share with you guys, if the ambient temperature is 40 or 42, 40 degrees or like 39 degrees inside the inverter, remember it's converting energy, right? For sure inside it will be also warm, right? And definitely on our side, we have data on our inverter in those different areas, how inverters are performing, right? And of course, we have our new Gen 24. As you see, we spend a lot of our research and development in our product. and it's something which is pretty special. So for those who haven't seen this heatsink before, this is of the Gen 24 heatsink. If you get the chance to have a look at it, I think in terms of cooling system and also looks, I think it's pretty good in a way, very futuristic in a way. But it's not only looking good; it's also about performance in terms of the active cooling. And for us, we know how components perform better at lower temperature. So this is basically a heat map, right, of the Gen 24. One thing that we got feedback also from people who's been installing the Gen 24 is that the fan itself, sometimes it doesn't really start often because it doesn't really need, because of this heatsink design as an example. So from the perspective of the active cooling, there are reasons why we're using this, right? So when we do some comparison with, let's say, passive cooling system, so here you can see there's an inverter in a, which is basically a 5 kilowatt inverter, competitor, of course, not the Fronius inverter. We put the inverter in a 50 degrees ambient temperature, right? And then we push the maximum power through the unit. What was very interesting when we did some testing like that, we saw via the thermal imaging that the actual components were getting to 113 degrees, right? And what was interesting is when you look at the manual of the inverter manufacturer, you see that it can go maximum to 110 degrees. So the question there is, of course, you have like this 3 degrees difference, but what will happen in terms of the lifespan of those particular components, right? Going above of what it is actually designed or like rated for in a way from the manufacturer point of view there. The other part, which is very interesting, is in terms of the performance of the system. And I'm pretty sure all of you guys there, you have different data sheet, and then you're always comparing, okay, which inverter derates at which temperature. What's very important to understand is let's say the temperature derating curve doesn't only depend on temperature. It also depends on the voltage. So here you can see the two comparisons. You can see basically Fronius at 850 degrees, 850 volts, and then you can see Fronius at 500 volts. And when you look at the comparison there, let's look at an example here with the 850. So we do both the same competition, the same amount of voltage. So Fronius is 850, competitor is 800 volts, right? Look at the derating curve. So you can see first that the competitor at 800 volts, it's starting to derate at a very early stage, so 30 degrees ambient. And when you compare that to the Fronius, it's later, around 40 degrees ambient, but also the curve, you can see it's not like a straight slope. It's basically let's say slower degradation, a slower reduction in power there. So that's where when you look on a data sheet where they say, okay, it start to derate at a specific temperature, it's always good to ask, okay, what's the voltage? Because you never know, maybe it's as this is an example, you have 800 volts, right? And it's just starting to derate at 30 degrees as an example. And of course, it goes with how the tracking mechanism also work there. And when we look at that, it basically corresponds to what the manufacturer said, right? With the competitor, where they say, okay, it starts to derate at 35 degree ambient here and 42 degrees ambient. So when you have those hot days, of course, you will see a change in terms of power production. The question is, okay, what is the actual reduction in power, right? So what we did is a bit of a case study where we had the ambient temperature in dotted line and then production of inverters just below that. As you can see here, this is temperature, and this is the amount of power being pushed out. Of course, when you can get the maximum of power, it's usually when it's hotter during the day, right? I think we're all across this page. So when you have an active cooling system, of course, you have this nice bell curve, and we see, okay, the maximum of power that we can produce is usually when it is the maximum temperature. So thanks again to the cooling system. And of course, you can harvest more energy because of more irradiance there. But when you look at the passive cooling system, you can see that they start to derate at an early stage, which represent around 50% difference there in performance. So again, with this whole hot weather condition around Australia, 100%, it's good to have a look at how those systems are performing there, and that's where it plays a big part in terms of the reliability of the product, right? As a general rule, every time you add 10 degrees to any electrical component, you reduce the lifespan of the product by half, right? And that's why we have those fans in all our inverters, to make sure that it is reliable in terms of performance and longevity of the product. So from here, we'll pass it to Dan now to talk a bit about the testing.
Okay, thanks, Seb. Hope everyone out there is doing okay. And yeah, please keep the questions coming. If you've got any questions, you can just type them into the questions section, and Seb or I will be able to answer them. Okay, so yeah, thanks, Seb. So yeah, Seb's covered a lot about the active cooling and what Fronius does to ensure that all the electrical components are kept as cool as possible. As we all realise, this is a big factor with components on what temperatures they're running at. And we do a lot of testing around this. We also do testing. This image you can see here is for EMC or RF energy testing. You guys might have been aware or might have heard that there has been problems in the past with solar equipment interfering with TV reception or other radio frequencies. So all products that come into Australia should be tested for this, and Fronius takes this very seriously, and we do a lot of EMC testing, and we meet all the international standards and the Australian RMC standards as well around the electromagnetic interference standards. And also, just going back to the active cooling, this image here is showing some thermal imaging happening on a Fronius inverter, and this has been a big part of developing the new active cooling technology that we've got in the Gen 24s, looking at better and more efficient ways to cool down the internal components, and that's why there's that cool radial fins happening on the Gen 24 as a new design, like the evolution of active cooling, as you like. And as people mentioned before, it's also the fan noise is quieter on that. But yeah, it's something that we have done a lot of testing on, and that's by doing all this testing, that's how you improve your products. And here we're testing the full voltage range and doing accelerated life cycle testing as well on the Fronius inverters. And then also, you guys probably heard of problems with LCD screen displays on inverters. That being a bit of an issue with solar inverters. So Fronius has make sure they do a lot of testing with the LCD screen to ensure it stands up to the test of time. And then obviously you get on to the IP rating testing. Here we're testing for water ingress. As IP ratings, you probably all know, the first number is to do with dust and the second is for water. The snap inverters, they were IP65, so a 5-level rating on their water ingress protection, which meant that they should be able to withstand jets of water from all directions without water getting into the inverter. And then there's a bit more novelty testing going on with the snap inverter to ensure it can handle a pretty serious amount of water. And then on the Gen 24, through all this testing, we've been able to step up the IP ratings a bit higher. So now we're up to IP66. So second number 6 being the next level of water protection on the Gen 24s. And this is water pressure from all angles at a higher pressure level than IP65 rating. So then we also do testing around salt mist corrosion and dust. Obviously with dust, that's the first number on your IP rating. So here it's got to be able to withstand having any dust get into the areas, the sealed areas. There should be no dust entry at all at IP6 level. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of testing that goes on for the products, and it's not about just the existing products and meeting the standards. It's also about trying to exceed these standards and doing more testing to improve the products. And then we get into the manufacturing of these new products. It's not just about the components we use and the design, but we've also got to think about the people in the business and the people who are assembling these products. They need to be highly trained and skilled to be able to ensure we've got a good level of quality control within the manufacturing of the products. And then you need highly skilled people in the quality control area to be able to ensure this reliability. All right, I'll just hand it back over to Seb, and he can just chat more about the international level and Fronius in Australia.
So just maybe touching a bit base on the last part of the presentation there. So of course you guys all know that our inverter is made in Austria in Europe, right? And of course we distribute all our inverters, as you see in this picture, all around the world, right? And having a headquarters in Europe, of course, in terms of communicating with Australia, if we didn't have, let's say, subsidiary in Melbourne, it would be pretty tricky, right? And one thing that you guys mentioned at the start is the people also that you want to be able to rely on, right? And that's something that we mentioned at the start of the training is the company itself. You want to make sure that when you need someone, there will be someone to help you there. It's not only about the product there, right? And of course, in Australia, we have a subsidiary. Dan is also based in Queensland. We also have people in Western Australia, and of course, our headquarters is in Melbourne. So anyone who is around, please feel free to come and see us, right? One of the important parts in terms of reliability, of course, we can talk about products, right? The one thing which is also important, where I think few of you guys who joined us at the start, Sarah, Eddie, and everyone before mentioned, is also they've been using Fronius for quite a long time, right? And it's not only about the product, which I think we should talk about. It's also about the people. And I'm pretty sure few of you guys joining us today has called, for example, our tech support, right? Where of course there's three pictures there, but there's more than 3 people. There's actually 8 engineers sitting in Melbourne, and also there's more team member in WA. Just to put a name to the face, because maybe you've reached out to some of them. I think one which a lot of people know is Balaji. He's been with us for quite a long time now, and also on social media, I think he gets recognized quite a lot. He's kind of a superstar of the tech support there. But we also have other people in the team there, where we have Fab helping, also Dua having more experience with the Fronius product, right? It's not only, let's say, a call center that we have there. It's like proper engineers helping you, and always knowing who you can rely on. Not only this, when it comes to compliance, I think a lot of you guys have asked questions in December saying, hey, there's a new compliance. What is happening? What do we do? What do we need to have? What product will be compliant? Suddenly, within a few days, there's a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries of what do we do? Are we able to install inverters? And that's where you want to have, again, someone that you can, a company, not someone, but a company that you can go back to, right? That you know that, okay, we can count on those people in this relationship. And that's where, for example, a lot of people will know Rod, for example, from our team. who I know there's only one person in the picture, but there's also a team which is basically being built around there, which Rod is looking after, which is basically very high level, for example, very high level tech support, but also when he has, just to give you a few examples, standard committees like VPPs and other, let's say, solution that needs to be implemented and feedback that needs to be given to Fronius International, like, for example, some of your ideas, guys, which needs to be implemented. Also, there are the application engineers that we have in place there, right, where they train different companies out there. Just to give you an example here, with Dan, who is with us today, and also the last few webinars, there's Patrice, who looks after the New South Wales. We have Vivek looking after Victoria, right, and myself also being part there with the different states there, South Australia mainly, but also helping the guys with different trainings, right? As you can see, this is also only part, right? I just mentioned showed you guys few faces which you may have encountered before, but it's much more behind the scene, right? We have way more people. If I'm not wrong, I think we have around 40 to 43 people, if I'm not wrong. It's a growing team, right? For us, we're not planning to stop here. We're planning to the next 10 years as an example there, right? We're not there for on the short term. We're here to help all the installers out there with this goal of 100% renewable. And going back to, I'm not sure if you guys remember this part that I mentioned, where I said, when you come with technologies on the market, which is new, most customers out there, right, who are getting solar, they are new customers, right? They haven't had solar installed before, most of them. And when you bring a solution, a product to them, you want to make sure, as mentioned, it is reliable. It meets their needs also. You don't want to scare them away with the technology. And that's where, when you present these options, you don't want to take a lot of risk. You need to be confident in the product that you are offering to the customers, right? And that's how, with all the experience that we have in power conversion, we try to put everything in those products. And also learning from you guys, giving feedback to Fronius International, learning from our past products, how to make it better. As an example, all the challenges as mentioned before, like smart meters, for example, there's the screw, which we have few challenges. How do we actually fix that in the future? What solution we provide to the customers? It's nothing to hide behind. It's basically to look at, okay, how do we provide the most, of course, future-proof product, reliable product, and how do we optimize the whole process all together? So that's pretty much it from our side, guys. So remember, there's 2 more webinars following up. So there will be another one. I would say the next 2 of course, we need to keep the best for last, right? The next 2 will be pretty special and really around the Gen 24 and also a bit of reliability, or I would say more sustainability about the inverter itself. So I think the next 2 webinars will be very interesting for you guys, and also what we're bringing in the future will be very interesting, I would say, for you guys. But if you have any other questions, maybe here in the chat.
Sorry if we've missed any, but yeah, there was a few things around the cable input for the smart meters that AD was talking about. But yeah, I mean, I think we've sort of answered that. There is work being done on new smart meters as well. So
yeah, definitely something we are looking into. They already released it in Europe, for example, but again, testing is very, very important. But looks like there's no other questions for us. There's like good feedback in terms of using our product. I think we should thank you guys for joining the webinar, but also you guys are using our product, right? And what I enjoyed today is also giving us feedback with the whole solution. It's not, as mentioned, not just everything is going well 100%. There's no issues out there. Of course, we should always look at how to make our product better. And without the communication with you guys, then we don't always know where we are we need to get it better, because you guys are on the ground doing it, and we really appreciate this feedback. Feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions, or again feedback that you have, any part that you want, anything that you want to hear also from us, please feel free to reach out at any time. But if there's nothing else, I really like what I think Mark was saying. 809% of our install are Fronius. I'm like 809%. That's a very high percentage. But thanks again, everyone, for joining our webinar. For those who also answered some of the questions and also participated in the session, we'll send you a few freebies. So we have all your names and info there. So definitely we'll send you some stuff. If you have, okay, Dan, yeah, all right. So I think Dan is also answering a few questions, but looks like there's no other parts there, so should be, yeah, should be it. But yeah, thanks everyone again for joining the webinar, and hopefully to see you all guys soon. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time, hey, and yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions after the webinar. All right, have a good afternoon.